We'll start off episode 7 with Rias. He meets up with Lydia, and Lydia's not too happy because he doesn't have Ciri. And he's not too happy because he was told that he was going to meet with Lydia's boss, but he hasn't shown up yet. He gives Lydia the mutagen and says, "Here, look into this and I guarantee your boss will show up about 10 seconds later." So she does, and she opens it up. But it completely burns her face. And now Rias just has to wait and see if he was right, if her boss does in fact show up. So things aren't going great for Lydia. Things are also not going great for Frangilla in Sintra. She's completely stressed out with the White Flame showing up, and to make matters worse, the Nilfgaardian soldiers aren't really following any of her orders. They just don't respect her. Now, a large point of contention is the fact the elves did not show up for training that day. Frangilla tries to defend them, saying they were up last night partying pretty hard about the birth, but the Nilfgaardians, including Kahar, don't think that's a good enough excuse. So Frangilla tells Kahar, "I will handle it." So she goes and has a conversation with both Filavandrel and Francesca about why the men didn't show up. And Filavandrel apologizes at first, but eventually he admits, "We're just not into this anymore, this whole deal that we made. Seems like we have a bigger purpose now with the birth of this child. We're not really into fighting a Nilfgaardian war that isn't ours." But Frangilla points out, it is your war because this is what you signed up for. She tries to talk to Francesca alone, saying that the bond they struck in the hut is working. Francesca has her baby, Frangilla has the approval of the White Flame, and all of this will stay that way if they're a unified front. However, Francesca looks at her and says, "We're friends, I value that, but right now, family is way more important." So it's going to be a no for Francesca, and Frangilla needs to figure out her next move. Over in Frangilla's old home, Artusa, they have a new leader of the Brotherhood. It's Vilgefortz. They also have a guest, Dijkstra. He's visiting from Redania, and he's letting him know about the birth of the elven child. Most of the Brotherhood feel like this is an issue, and Tissaia points out, only you guys could think that a baby being born is a threat. Now, Tissaia doesn't think that this meeting was just about letting the Brotherhood know about the birth. She feels like Dijkstra is fishing for some information, and he says that it's his job to have information. Like, for example, he heard that Marigold is back in Artusa, and that's news to everybody. It forces Tissaia to admit, yes, she came back, she wasn't feeling well, she's healing up. Dijkstra then heads back to Redania, and he tells Vizimir, all we have to do is track down Ciri. With Ciri, we have Sintra, which means that Redania is the most powerful kingdom in the continent. Now, while Dijkstra was returning to Redania, Tissaia tried to get some information from Marigold. She started off the conversation by letting her know she actually saw Ciri and Geralt after the Battle of Sodden, although she didn't realize who they were at the time. They were looking for Yennefer. She then asked Marigold, who else knows about the information you told me? And Marigold says, just the Witchers and you. I don't trust anybody else. But that's when Vilgefortz runs in and demands that Marigold tell him all the information about Ciri. And Marigold feels completely betrayed. She looks at Tess and says, you told him? And Tess has to explain, oh, I had to tell somebody, I didn't tell him everything, but this is important information people need to know. Marigold, however, does not tell Vilgefortz anything because she feels like she was stabbed in the back. She just walks off. And Tissaia is pretty pissed off that Vilgefortz ran in there. She tried telling Vilgefortz she's not ready, but he clearly didn't listen. Vilgefortz tells Tissaia, I couldn't wait. We need to get our hands on this girl. If we do, we could end war forever. But her, in the wrong hands, well, that's trouble, and we have nobody to blame but ourselves if that happens. This culminates in a pretty big screaming match. It's out of earshot of Arturus, because he's just chilling in his room doing some work when he is visited by Frangilla. She's doing this covertly. She tells Arturus everything that's going on with the baby, but his big takeaway is the fact that Tissaia was right. This baby being born actually helps the Brotherhood because the elves don't want to fight a Nilfgaardian war. She, however, came there looking for some help, but he doesn't give it. He gives her a whole speech about knowing her place, how she's not a leader. And this pisses her off so much that when she portals back into Sintra, she portals into the dining hall where Kahar and his men are actually talking about when the White Flame shows up, he's probably going to end up killing Frangilla. Well, that pisses her off. So she decides to show them who's boss. She puts them in a paralyzed state. They can look around, they can hear, but they can't move at all. And one by one, she kills all of Kahar's men. As she's doing so, she's getting encouragement from the Deathless Mother, who was the voice from the hut. She finally gets to Kahar, but she doesn't kill him. She tells him that when the White Flame shows up, he's going to tell the White Flame that these men were traitors, and she was justified in doing what she did. The murder of those men wasn't the only murder that went down that night. As Francesca is sleeping, she has a horrible dream that her baby is being killed. But when she wakes up, she's shocked to learn that it wasn't a dream. Phil Evangel is holding their dead child, and they're floored. So that is what is going on inside of Sintra. But outside of Sintra, the rightful heir to the Sintran throne, Ciri, portal with Yennefer to the cabin of the woman that took Ciri in. Takes a little bit, but Ciri ends up recognizing it, although the family isn't there. Ciri starts looking around the cabin, and then she finds out the family was murdered. Ciri immediately starts feeling guilty for this, feeling like it was her fault. And then she thinks about Geralt, and this is when Yennefer sees her opportunity to get Ciri to Sintra. She tells Ciri that mage probably did kidnap Geralt, but they're not going to kill him. They're just going to torture him to try to get information on Ciri. So she convinces Ciri to follow her to Sintra, all the while knowing Geralt isn't there. On the way there, they come across a river that they can't cross because the bridge is down, and Yennefer feels like this is a good opportunity to do lesson 2 of Ciri's magical ability. She starts giving Ciri the words to conjure a new bridge, and it starts to work, but it gets too much. Ciri starts bleeding out of the eyes, bleeding out of the nose, and Yennefer screams for her to stop because she's just going to end up hurting herself. Ciri is frustrated and yells, and when she does that, it actually teleports both of them over on the other side of the river. Yennefer, though, isn't mad at all. She's actually thrilled, and she tells Ciri, "Don't ever apologize for having this kind of power." They then continue to make their way towards Sintra. Geralt was back in the temple. When Yennefer betrayed him, he knew that he needed to get to Ciri immediately. Nenneke, however, tries to talk him out of it, saying maybe Yennefer doesn't have ulterior motives. Maybe she's trying to protect Ciri. But he reminds her, "I made a promise. This is my duty to protect this girl. I need you to portal me somewhere." And where he has Nenneke portal him, it's to the prison where the bard is being held. He's able to free the bard, and the bard gives him a huge hug. He's thrilled to see Geralt. But he's even more pumped because now that he's free, he can bathe. He smells terrible. As he's washing up, Geralt asks him, why was Yennefer around? What was her angle? And Jaskier says she was on the run and she had lost her magic. And the fact that Yennefer had lost her magic is complete news to Geralt. But the more that Jaskier thinks about it, he thinks that he was duped by Yennefer because he says, well, she told me she lost her magic, but then all of a sudden when I went to go free her, she said a couple of words and she disappeared. So I think I was lied to. Geralt asks him, what did she say to make herself disappear? And when the bard tells him, Geralt recognizes the phrase. Geralt realizes Yennefer is working with the Deathless Mother, whose real name, by the way, is Voleth Meir. The first Witchers were actually hired to trap Voleth Meir, and they did that. They trapped her in the hut. And while neither Jaskier or Geralt want to admit it, they both realize that it's very plausible that Yennefer is about to take Ciri and sacrifice her to the Deathless Mother so she can get her power back. So Geralt tells the bard, we need to get to Sintra immediately, but they're going to need help. And luckily for Geralt, they run into Yarpen and the other dwarf warriors. Geralt tells Yarpen he needs his help, and that sounds a lot better than protecting caravans. So Geralt, the bard, Yarpen, his men, they all head to Sintra, unknowingly on a collision course with Yennefer and Ciri. And Yennefer and Ciri are the first ones to arrive. They're within eyeshot of the kingdom, and Ciri tells Yennefer about how she toppled the monolith. And Yennefer is fully understanding just how powerful this girl is. Yennefer tells Ciri, promise me that if we're ever separated, you'll remember you have that power inside you. Ciri says, I want to trust you on that, but I've never been able to control my chaos, and no one's ever been able to teach me how to control it. The Deathless Mother, though, is getting a little impatient. She starts talking to Yennefer to speed this process up, finish the job, deliver her to the door. So Yennefer reluctantly does it, delivering Ciri to the door, but it allows both Ciri and Yennefer to telepathically speak. Yennefer tells Ciri, if you're afraid, turn back. Ciri, realizing what just happened, tells her, you know that door was not supposed to be opened up, right? Yennefer says, yes, I am aware. And Ciri can't believe that even though Yennefer knew this, she still led her to the door. The door then disappears and they're able to talk just like normal people, and Yennefer starts apologizing, telling her how she felt like she had no choice, she had to do this to get her power back. Ciri can only focus, though, on Geralt. So she starts walking towards Sintra, and Yennefer has to tell Ciri, Geralt's not there. He never was. This was all planned just to get you here. But you need to come with me now. Because it's at this moment that Yennefer realizes she's made a crucial mistake. Ciri, however, looks at Yennefer and says, I don't trust you. And when she says that, the ground forms another crack. That crack goes so far, it actually goes all the way to the castle walls, and it alerts the Nilfgaardian soldiers. Ciri and Yennefer try to get out of there and run away, but they're scooped up. They're only saved when Geralt, the Bard, and the dwarves all show up and save the day. Geralt is holding a sword at Yennefer's throat, and he tells Ciri, go with the Bard, you're going back to Kaer Morhen. Ciri asks him, where are you going? And he tells her, I have to slay a monster. He doesn't kill Yennefer. He instead uses her, having her say the words that get them back into that cabin. But when they go to visit the Deathless Mother, it's not like before, because now that the door's opened up, the Deathless Mother can escape, and she does that. She ends up escaping into the real world, tracking down Ciri and taking over her body. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.